Welcome inside the D-Event Center on the campus of Weber State University for High School Rewind's coverage of the 2015 5A Boys State Championship basketball game between the Layton Lancers and the Brighton Bengals. Welcome everybody, Dusty Lister with you. So glad to have you along with us in our High School Rewind coverage. The season has culminated to one game between Layton and Brighton. Two teams who have played extremely well in this tournament. We'll go head-to-head. And two of the top players in the state of Utah, Jarice Blackman, who will head off to Santa Barbara and be in the Gauchos next season, and Brock Miller, who will be going up to Logan and play for the Aggies. They are our two most important players in this game today. As they go, their teams go. And it'll be interesting. Brock Miller getting started early is something he does very, very well. And for Jarice Blackman, it's usually a matter of which Jarice shows up in the first part of the game. We saw against Bingham, he got started early and Layton got off early. Yesterday against Viewmont, he got into foul trouble, started a little bit slowly, and Layton started slowly. So he's a key to that. For Brighton with Brock Miller, it's about lighting it. He hits a couple of threes, loosens his team up. He gets the ball moving. He also has some outstanding athletes around him. Osa Masina, Simi Fahoko, and then John Gramillion, he's steady Eddie for Brighton. Somewhat of the wild card player, if you will, would be Jacoby Kemp for Layton. And what he's able to do. Jumping it up for Layton, going to be Jarice Blackman go against John Gramillion. And we are underway in the 2015 5A Boys State Championship basketball game. Up the floor with Julian Blackman. Lob up to Jarice. He can't get the dunk. We got a foul on Osa Masina. And it'll be two free throws coming away of Jarice Blackman. Jarice got the first. Hits them both. 2-0 to lead for Lancers. Down the floor with the Brighton Bengals. Devashere, Fahoko, Masina, Miller, and Gramillion for Coach Jeff Gardner. Fahoko up top now to Devashere. Back to Fahoko. Brighton, and it was a dominating win against American Fork in the first round. A dominating win against PG in the quarters. A fall-away J from Masina off the mark. And it was a squeaking win and a comeback from Davis as Brighton got into the championship game. Jacoby Kemp from downtown and Fahoko with the board. Quick up the floor, Fahoko. Kick it over to Miller. Back to Simi. Gramillion up top, Devashere. Brighton trying to become the first school since Mountain View in 1999 to win both the boys and girls championship games. And lay it up and in with Devashere. Interestingly enough, Coach Jeff Gardner was part of that Mountain View team in 1999, the boys basketball team of the Bruins. Looking to get the second one as a head coach with the Bengals. Watts up top to Jacoby Kemp. He kicks out Jarice Blackman. Blackman working on Osa Masina, floats it up and in, and quickly now 4 points for Jarice. Back down the floor, Osa outside, give it up to Devashere, hand off to Fahoko. Here's Miller. Along the baseline, Gramillion with the flyby from Kemp. Is blocked by Julian Blackman. Saves in to Osa, and Osa lays it up and in. Done a lot of basketball games. We thought Osa Masina played his best game yesterday that we had seen. Looked confident on the floor. He moved. He's an outstanding football player. Will go play for Coach Sarkeesian and the Trojans next year. Looked very comfortable on the floor yesterday. And we're all tied up at 4. 5.5 remaining in the first quarter. Julian sent in the corner to Dallin Watts. Watts up top to Jarice Blackman. Pulls for 3. Off the mark. Rebound taken by Devashere. He sends ahead to Miller. Miller. Masina along the baseline. Fall away. Leaves it short. Rebound still loose. Up and in. It was getting tipped around Jarice Blackman may have actually tipped that in. We'll give it to Gramillion. 6-4 Brighton. 5 minutes remaining in the quarter. The floor now, Julian Blackman, who's been outstanding this entire week for the Lancers. Baseline J from Jacoby Kemp is off the mark. On the push now with Osa. Send ahead to Gramillion, picked off by Steele Roberts. Roberts ahead to Jarice Blackman. A little bit of showtime? No, stripped away by Brock Miller. Steele Roberts. Into Jarice. Blackman, long range 2. Rattles out. Back down the floor with Brock Miller and the Bengals. Devashray, Gramillion, and Messina with the 3 buckets. Brock Miller yet to get on the board. We know he will. Messina in the corner. Brock Miller pulls for 3, and it rolls out. Gramillion draws the foul. Jacoby Kemp needs to hurry and raise his hand. I think that's who's going to go on. And it will. Gramillion missed the first. Gets the second. Up the floor now, Julian Blackman. In the corner to Dallin Watts. Watts up top, Blackman on the angle now with Cragen. Cragen try to drop it in. Picked off by Fehoko. Fehoko racing to the front court. Fehoko laid up. No. We'll have a foul on Julian Blackman. It'll put Simi Fehoko at the line to shoot 2. Fehoko missed the first. He gets the second. 8-4 Brighton leads. 3:45 remaining here in the first quarter. Up the floor with Julian Blackman. It was a quick 4 points for Jarice. Got a little bit cold since that point. Sent out to Armistead. Now Julian Blackman. Jarice spins around. Fehoko couldn't get it to go. Fehoko the board up the floor now with Brock Miller on the angle to Vashray. Drop it in Gramillion. Gramillion couldn't get it to go. Rebound claimed by Armistead. Armistead up top with Julian. Up top, Edwards. Into Jarice. Off the window and in. Jarice Blackman with 6 first quarter points. And it's an 8-6 lead for the Bengals. Back down the floor with Brock Miller. Yet to get his first points. Picked off by Jarice. Ahead, Julian. Julian passed to Vashray and his foul. They'll call it on the floor. Will inbound along the baseline. Trigger in, nearly picked off by Fehoko. See him do that a lot on the gridiron. Foul on the floor. We'll get that on Fehoko, be the team's third. Armistead into Blackman. Jarice, left hand short. Now on the run with Messina. Osa reverses out to Gramillion. Sent out to Miller. Along the baseline, Brock Miller with his first 2. Back up to a 4-point lead for the Bengals. Here's Julian in the corner, Cragen. Cragen back up top, Julian. Try to spin that into Jarice, will inbound near side. Cragen gets it into Edwards. Edwards puts it up and it rolls off. Tipped back to Edwards. Fall away Jay, back rim. Tipped up by Jarice. He gets the board. Stripped away by Brock Miller, and Miller comes away with it. Missed opportunities for Layton. Miller, pull up 3. Rattled home. 7-point lead for Brighton. Down the floor inside of a minute and a half remaining. Julian doesn't get the call. Out of bounds off of Brighton. Will stay here. Inbound to Julian. Thought about 3, down up top, Jarice. In the corner, Cragen for 3. Nearly drew rain and almost fell. Rebound on the push with Brighton. Looking to extend the 7-point lead. Messina called for the charge. Number 2 on Osa. 4th team foul on the Bengals. Back up the floor with Layton and Julian Blackman inside of a minute remaining in the opening quarter. Edwards back to Blackman. Up top, Armistead. Long 3 off the mark. Rebound, Gramillion. Hand off now to Miller. Miller ahead. Matheson terminates. Give it up to Gramillion. Down the boulevard. Floated up and in. Jarice Blackman was going to take a charge. Gramillion took advantage. Floated over the top of Blackman's hands down. And now a 9-point lead for the Bengals. 35 seconds remaining. Julian Blackman in the lane. Sent out to Armistead. He'll reverse out. Drop it into Edwards. Edwards working on Gramillion. Block from behind. Edwards again back up with it. And again. His first points. And the first non-Jarice Blackman points inside of 10 seconds. Miller in the corner. Matheson, 5 seconds. DeVacheray for 3. DeVacheray from downtown. At the end of the first quarter, the heave will count. And at the end of one, it's the Brighton Bengals 18, the Layton Lancers 8. Start of the second quarter, and we'll start the Bengals. They're looking to extend their double-digit lead. Inside, Gramillion off the mark. Rebound, Julian Blackman. Down the floor now with Boston Armistead. Layton have to find their offense here in the second quarter, because they are a very good defensive team. But their offense, they've got to score points. Jarice floated up and score it. 8 points in the first half for Jarice Blackman. So Blackman with 8 points. And Edwards scored that bucket right for the end of the quarter. The points for Layton. It was 5 points in the first quarter for Miller, DeVacheray, and Gramillion as that 3 rolls off. Gramillion with the board. Puts it back up and in. Back to 10 points. Gramillion now with 7. Up top with Edwards. Edwards send out Watts. Drop it back in, Edwards. Working on Gramillion, put it up, no. Gramillion with the board. Back down the floor with Miller. Miller kicks into the corner to Matheson. Picked off by Jarice Blackman. Blackman on the push. Blackman to the hole, rolls off. Back down the floor for Hoko. Miller in the corner to Matheson. Drop it in. Swat out of bounds by Jarice Blackman. And we'll stay here. Kemp back in the game. Miller pulls for 3. Brock Miller knocks down his second triple. And it's now a 13-point lead for Brighton. They rolled yesterday with Davis. Davis made a great comeback, spearheaded by Jesse Wade. And now we got a foul away from the ball on the screen. That goes against Jarice Blackman. So after the offensive foul, Brighton looking to extend their 13-point lead. DeVacheray has almost slapped away by Julian Blackman. Still loose. Julian comes away with the loose ball. Lays it up and in. Much needed defensive stop and bucket for Layton. They were reeling a little bit here. Matheson trapped, cross court to DeVacheray. Layton wanted to travel, didn't get it. Gramillion sent out Matheson. Up top, Miller. Miller, pull up 3. And it's a jump ball. Possession arrow belongs to Layton. Layton can trim it down to 9. Or 8 with a 3. Out top, Blackman. Down the lane to the hole, and it's good. Jarice Blackman with 10 points here in the first half. 23-14. DeVacheray. Oh, nice cut by Miller. He goes Princeton cut right behind Blackman. And Brock Miller with 10 points. An 11-point Brighton lead. Blackman finds Watts. Out to Kemp. Kemp to the hole. He's fouled on the floor. Will inbound along the baseline. 15th foul on the Bengals. Blackman, fall away jumper. Too strong. Rebound taken on the push now. Here's Fehoko. Cross to Gramillion. He can't get it to go. Tipped up. No. Miller comes down with the board. Over to Gramillion, who puts it up and in. Back to 13. Brighton running on a well-oiled machine. Blackman can't get it to go. And we got a foul on the rebound against Jarice Blackman. That's his second. Jarice Blackman goes to the bench with his second foul. Leading scorer for the Lancers. He's got all but 4 points. Brighton in command here, lead by 13. Devashere in the corner to Fehoko. Here they picked off. Devashere over to Miller. Pulls for three. Back rim. Rebound taken by Jacoby Kemp. Quickly down the floor now with Julian Blackman. Watts. Over to Edwards. A tough call on Simi Fehoko. His second. Steele Roberts to trigger in. Layton got to get it in. Does to Julian Blackman. Layton at the close out this second quarter. 3:40 remaining. Here's Kemp. Drive hard to the hole, and Jacoby Kemp lays it up and in. Here's Devashere on the angle of Fehoko. Fehoko up top, Devashere cross court, Messina. Now Miller. Back to Devashere. Fehoko. Messina send out Fehoko on the baseline with Gramillion. He had that one picked off, but Devashere will track it down inside of 3 minutes. Fehoko, high post to Miller. Send out Messina, back to Devashere. Ball nearly picked off by Blackman. Ball still loose. Kemp has it ahead of Julian. Blackman reverses and scores. Julian Blackman, also an outstanding defensive back for the Layton Lancers. Showing his defensive skills here in the first half. 9-point game. High post for Fehoko. Can't get it to go. Rebound claimed by Edwards. Big possession here for Layton to get some positive momentum. Kemp crossover to the hole. Crawls off. Rebound taken by Miller. Missed opportunity there. Back down the floor. Slouted away by Watts. Saved in. Edwards will hand off to Blackman. Nice play by Dallin Watts. Inside of 2 minutes. Watts to Kemp. Kemp fall away. Jay rolls off. And the rebound claimed by Osa Messina. Up the floor now. 1:45 on the clock with the Brighton Bengals. Messina doesn't get it to go. No call on the contact. Back down the floor with Julian Blackman. Can cut it down to 7 points. Outside. Kemp for three. He rolls out. 3 missed chances here for Layton. Played good defense. Unable to convert on the offensive end of the floor. Now a minute 15 remaining here in the half. Expect Brighton to eat up the clock. Fehoko, now Messina. Sent out Miller for three. Off the mark, rebound taken by Jacoby Kemp. Inside of a minute. 55 seconds remaining in the half. Back down the floor. We've been hanging on 9 points and 3 missed opportunities from Layton. Julian up top at Steele Roberts. Roberts back up top to Julian Blackman. Off the screen of Edwards, 40 seconds. Long range two. Doesn't go. 4 straight misses from Layton with chances to continue to cut into this deficit. Out in the corner. Ball nearly picked off by Kemp. Fehoko gets it off outside Messina. Now back up top Fehoko. 20 seconds remaining in the half. Miller in the corner. Fehoko for three. Too strong. Rebound still loose. We're going to have a foul underneath on Steele Roberts. Messina triggers in. Fehoko traveled. Turnover. Layton ball with 7.3 remaining in the half. Smith and Matheson come on for Fehoko, and Messina not pick up a cheap foul. 5 seconds remaining. Quickly up the floor with Blackman. Julian, free throw line extended. Buries the shot. We head to the locker room. Brighton 27, Layton 20. 1 half a play remaining in the 5A season. High School Rewind is excited to have Nudge as our Player of the Game sponsor. Nudge is one of the fastest growing companies in Utah Valley. With over 500 employees, Nudge is one of the largest contributors of volunteer community outreach programs. To learn more about Nudge and their program, visit www.nudge.com. Start of the second half, we start with the Brighton Bengals, a 7-point lead for Brighton here in the 5A championship game. Inside, Gramillion gets Kemp off his feet and one. If you're going to foul him, Kemp's got to take away the shot. He didn't. It'll be Gramillion going to the line. Gramillion for the +1. Back rimmed and the rebound to Dallin Watts. For Layton, it was a tough offensive first half. Their defense sparked some things toward the end. Had 4 straight stops, only got 1 bucket out of the 5 of the 6 stops they got. Here's Blackman. Out to Watts for 3. Dallin Watts off the mark. And rebound, Gramillion on the push. Now Miller ahead to Vacheray. Lays it up and in. Watts couldn't get the steal. And it's now an 11-point game. A quick 4-0 spurt from Brighton. Blackman sent in the corner. Roberts, 3 from Blackman, no. Kemp saves in. And we're on the push now with Brighton. Brock Miller, cross to Fehoko, leaves it for Vacheray. Long range 2, off the mark, rebound taken by Jarice. Fehoko tips that one out of bounds off Fehoko and will stay here. Big possession here for Layton. Julian, high post to Kemp, turnaround Jay. Too strong. Vacheray with the board, up the floor now with Messina. Outside with Fehoko. High post Messina, sent out to Vacheray. Can't get the 3, Gramillion with the board. Fehoko will drive the lane. Jackknife it up and roll it in. Thought he'd get the foul with the bump, didn't, but able to finish it. And it's now a 13-point Brighton lead. Timeout, Coach Kelby Miller. 6:02 remaining in the third. All Bengals. They lead 33-20 over Layton. Out of the timeout, Layton held scoreless here in the first couple of minutes of the third quarter. Had it down to 7 at the half, trailing now by 13. Roberts. That one kicked by Messina will stay here. Julian. Over to Watts. Gets it into Blackman, working on Fehoko. Double comes. Watts for 3. And that won't go. Rebound Gramillion. Quick on the push now with Miller. Miller left it for Gramillion. Luckily, Vacheray saw it. Picked up the loose ball. Vacheray and up top Gramillion. And Messina will hand back and will reset the offense. And now a foul on Watts. It'll be the second team foul on the Lancers. Armistead comes on for Watts. Here's Vacheray. 5 minutes remaining in the third quarter. Now Messina. Messina down the lane. Gramillion couldn't handle the pass. And we'll go back down the floor with Layton. For Brighton, it's been a number of years playing very, very well under Coach Jeff Gardner. He had Brandon Miller and crew, lost in the semis championship to Lone Peak, returned to the semis, lost to Lone Peak. As Kemp gets that one to go. As Lone Peak has been in the way throughout the tenure of Coach Gardner at Brighton. This year, Lone Peak gets knocked out in the second round. And Brighton gets Layton in the championship. Miller down the lane, left hand, leaves it short. Rebound still loose and will stay here. Messina lobs in Gramillion. Working on Kemp. Backs him down. Fall away, back rimmed. Gets his board, goes back up, no call. Armistead grabs the board, hands off to Blackman. Blackman ahead to Kemp. Kemp off the glass and in. 6 points for Jacoby Kemp. And now a 9-point game, 33-24. 3:40 on a rolling clock in the third. Brock Miller working on Blackman. Sent out to Devashere. Pull up Jay, short. And we got a foul on the rebound. And I think it's on Messina, and that's number 3. Lancers can cut this back down to 7. Blackman leaves it short, gets his own rebound, goes back up and rolls it in. Jarice Blackman's second points of the second half. Timeout, Coach Gardner. Back to a 7-point game. Brighton 33, Layton 26 on a 6-0 run. It's out of the timeout. 3 minutes remaining in the third quarter. Layton battling back here in the 5A championship. Miller has a ball picked up by Kemp. Julian Blackman leaves it to Jacoby Kemp. He leaves it too strong off the glass. Missed opportunity. And a foul on Julian Blackman. His second, team's third. Missed opportunity from Layton. Could have trimmed this down to 5 points. And Brighton yesterday against Davis, when the opportunities were there, they cashed in. Miller working on Armistead. Sent out to Vacheray. Up top, Messina. Messina, long range 2. Front rim, rebound to Matt Cragen. On the push now, Julian Blackman. Ahead of Jarice. Jarice sent out Armistead. Pulls for 3. Off the mark, Blackman with the board. Couldn't get the bucket. Cragen with the board. He'll go back up. And one! Matt Cragen takes the bump and bucket. He'll go to the line. Cragen finally giving this large Layton contingency something to get excited about as he completes the 3-point play, and it's a 4-point game. It was 13 points, 33-20 out of the halftime break. A 6-0 burst from Brighton, and Layton since then on a 9-0 run. Fehoko give it up Messina. 2 minutes remaining in the third quarter. Brock Miller down the lane, floated up too strong. Rebound, Jarice Blackman. Blackman down the lane, sent out Armistead. Now Kemp put on the floor. No call on the contact on either side, and a ball loose. Cragen lost the handle. Ball still loose. We got a jump ball. Possession arrow belongs to the Lancers. So after the jump ball, Brighton will have the ball to start the fourth quarter. Minute and a half remaining in the third. Up top, Edwards. Edwards poked away by Fehoko. Missed opportunity again from the Lancers. Messina slows it up. Hands back to Vacheray. Back to Messina. Now Brock Miller. Julian Blackman out with Brock Miller. Timeout. No. 5-second violation on Brock Miller. First one we've seen all tournament. Robbie Smith comes on for Messina, who has 3 fouls. Don't want to get a cheap one in the last minute of the third. Blackman Boston Armistead terminates. Here's Jarice along the baseline. Can't get it to go. On the push now to Vacheray. He'll pull up and hit. Can't get one on one end. Vacheray comes down and pushes it up to 6. 35 seconds remaining. Here's Julian. He'll pull up. Back rim. Rebound. And a foul on Brock Miller. 13th foul on Brighton. Cragen inbound. Got to get it in. Cragen has that one. Nearly picked off by Fehoko. Blackman. Fancy ball handling. Loose ball in the Cragen's hands. Another and one for Cragen. Matt Cragen with 5 points. Both of them bumping buckets. He'll go to the line looking for the three-point play. Cragen at the line for the +1 to make it a three-point game. Cragen with 6 points. Both of them late in the third quarter. Big buckets. It was a 13-point lead for Brighton, trimmed down to 3. A 12-3 run from the Lancers. Probably 12-2. Up top now with Miller. Pulls for 3. Back rim. Fehoko with the board. 1 second. He'll count if it goes, and it's short. We head to the fourth and final frame of the 5A state championship. Brighton clinging to a 35-32 lead over the Lancers. Start of the fourth quarter in a 3-point game in the 5A state championship. It'll be the first different champion in 4 years in a 5A classification. The last there's a Vacheray losing the handle. And now backcourt. Since 2006, only 2 teams have won 5A titles that are not Lone Peak. Bingham and West Jordan. Jacoby Kemp makes it a 1-point game. Hard to the hole. No charge. Wipe off the bucket. We'll go the other way with Layton. Since 2007, only 2 teams not Lone Peak have won state championships. West Jordan and Alta. Blackman. Sent in the corner to Cragen. Cragen can't get it to go. Kemp couldn't get the putback. And then they call a technical foul on Kemp. I'm not sure how you call that on him. He went for a putback. He grabbed the rim as he was coming down. That shouldn't be a technical foul. So offensive basket interference on Jacoby Kemp. Down the floor with Brighton. Messina trying to get that one into Gramillion. Stolen. Watts hands off Cragen. Up the floor now with Blackman. Quiet offensive day for Julian Blackman. Out to Jacoby Kemp. Kemp working on Gramillion. Lost the handle. Tracks it back down. Out top to Julian Blackman. Drop it in Jarice. Jarice going to work. Send out Watts. 4-3. And Cragen with the backside board and a foul on Fehoko. Number 3 on Simi Fehoko. Inbound into Blackman. Julian sent out Kemp. Kemp pirouette in the lane. Fall away. Blocked by Gramillion. And they got him with the foul. Couple tough calls on Gramillion. It'll put Jacoby Kemp at the line to shoot 2. Kemp ties us up at 35. And hits them both. And Layton takes the lead, their first lead since it was 4-2. Brock Miller sent out to Vacheray for 3. Short-lived lead taken back by a 3 from Vacheray. 38-36. 6 minutes remaining. Julian outside Watts. And it rolls off. Rebound out of bounds off of Cragen. Reset the game for you. 17 fouls on Brighton, 3 on Layton. Something to keep track of there. Possession arrow belongs to the Lancers. Miller drive the lane, terminates. Sent out to Vacheray. Back up top to Brock Miller. Miller floated up, back rim. Has not scored in the second half. Julian Blackman on the push. Blackman at Gramillion. And now the charge on the pass. All week long, we've seen this call. And I got Blackman with that one. Here's the trap, Miller. No call on the hook. Loose ball picked up by Blackman. He's fouled by Devashere. It'll be Julian Blackman shooting 2 free throws. Blackman hit the first. Tied up at 38. 5:25 remaining in the fourth quarter. Down the floor with Brock Miller. He'll hand off to Devashere. 12 points for Devashere. Leading scorer for the Bengals. Lob in Gramillion. Been a quiet day for John Gramillion for the most part. At least his second half. He's now got 13 points after an outstanding first half. Down the floor, Dries Blackman. He'll drive off the glass and one against the bucket. Timeout, Coach Miller. 5 minutes remaining in the fourth. We're tied up at 40. 5 minutes remaining in the 5A championship. All tied up at 40. Out of the timeout, down the floor with the Bengals. Messina up top to Miller. Miller down the lane, gets his first points of the second half, and it's a 42-40 lead to Brighton. Up the floor now, Dries Blackman. Blackman in the corner, Boston Armistead. Off the mark, rebound loose and grabbed by Gramillion. Back down the floor with Miller. Send out Devashere. Up top to Messina. Miller. Gramillion pulls from the free throw line, and John Gramillion with his 15th point. And a 4-point lead for Brighton. Blackman. Hanging up top, inside to Cragen. Cragen, jump ball. Possession arrow belongs to Layton. Cragen. Had to save it back to Blackman. That was a tricky play. 3.5 remaining down the fourth. Julian trying to get into Dries. Picked off by Osa. Going the other way. Reverse it up and in. Brock Miller. Miller knew Blackman was on the trail. Reversed it and used the rim. Cragen for 3. Big 3 from Matt Cragen. Quickly ahead. And Blackman nearly with the steal. We'll stay here. Matt Cragen with big play after big play. 3-point ball game. Pull up off the mark. Rebound. Blackman hands off to Julian. Up top, Julian Blackman, 2:45 remaining in the fourth. Jacoby Kemp. His foul to go to the line. The foul will be on Gramillion. That's his third, team 9th. Kemp got the first. Back rims his second. Cragen tracks down the board and fouled by Messina. It is 2 free throws coming to Matt Cragen. Double bonus for Layton. That's the 4th personal foul on Osa. Cragen hit the first. Tied at 46. Matt Cragen with 9 points, all huge points. Timeout, Coach Gardner. 2:27 remaining in the fourth, tied up at 46. Messina will trigger in for the Bengals. On the floor with Devashere. Messina out to Brock Miller. Working on Julian Blackman. Miller at travel. Got caught. Was going to pull up. Kemp was there and he drug his feet. So after the turnover, Layton could look for their second lead since the first quarter. Held the lead just for a short moment. Blackman loses the handle. Back down the floor with the Bengals. 1:50 remaining in the fourth. Miller hands back Messina. Now Fehoko to Brock Miller. Timeout. Coach Gardner. 1:42 remaining. Out of the timeout. 1:40 remaining in the 5A championship. All tied up at 46. Up top of Messina. Back over Fehoko. He'll hand back to Brock Miller. Julian Blackman out there with him. Miller out to Vacheray. 1:20 remaining. We'll see if Brighton can take this thing all the way down, take the final shot of the championship game. Miller drives, no call on the bump. Stunned, and there was no call there. Blackman crosses over to Matt Cragen. He's got 11 points. To correct our stat from earlier, 1 minute remaining in the 5A championship. Up top, Jacoby Kemp on the angle with Cragen. Back to Kemp. And now Layton's going to drain the clock. 45 seconds remaining. They start the 5-second count on Blackman. 35 seconds. He'll go up top, Austin Armistead. 25 seconds. Imagine Layton will take a timeout, around 15 seconds left. 20 seconds now. They have 3 timeouts remaining, and they're not going to call any. 15 seconds. That ball kicked out of bounds. They'll inbound along the far side. Everybody's on their feet. 12.8 seconds remaining in the fourth quarter. Tied up at 46. 10 seconds remaining up top of Julian Blackman. 5 seconds. Blackman in the lane. Put it up, blocked. Cragen with the putback with 2 seconds remaining. And Brighton takes his timeout. Who else? Matt Cragen, who's had 2 +1 buckets and a 3-pointer. He gets the putback. And Layton with the 48-46 lead. Messina will trigger in. He lobs ahead, Gramillion. Gramillion fouled by Blackman, had fouls to give. Heads up play. 0.9 remaining. That was only the 15th foul on Layton. Messina to trigger in. Got 0.9. Lob up to Gramillion, and that'll do it. The Layton Lancers come from behind and take the 5A state title. Matt Cragen with the putback with just seconds remaining. The lob to Gramillion was defended, no call. And Layton comes from behind, down 13 in the second half, to claim the 2015 5A Boys State Championship. Congratulations to Coach Kelby Miller and the Lancers. They went on a run after the Utah Elite 8 tournament. Lost the game to Viewmont, lost to Davis. Were the number 2 seed in the tournament out of Region 1. Had a scary game in the first round. Beat Bingham, who was one of the 5A favorites in the second. Held on for a win yesterday in the semis. And come from behind to beat Brighton. Semis that took care of Region 4 Viewmont to avenge a loss late in the season. For Brighton, another season coached very well by Coach Gardner. What a career for Brock Miller. As a basketball player with the Bengals, he'll move on to Utah State. Osa Messina, we'll see him playing on Saturdays for Coach Sarkeesian and the Trojans. What a tough way for this season to end for Brighton. But what a ball game. Again, our final score, the Layton Lancers 48, the Brighton Bengals 46. Our nudge player of the game is going to be Matt Cragen. Who else? He made the big plays for Layton when they needed him with +1s, hit a corner 3, and then the game-winning shot with 48 to put Layton up 48-46 with just over 2 seconds remaining in this game. He is our nudge player of the game. Again, our final score, Layton 48, Brighton 46. The Layton Lancers, the 2015 5A Boys State champions. The Nuds player of the game, Matt Cragen, with over 500 employees. Nuds are one of the fastest growing companies in Utah Valley. To learn more about Nuds and its community outreach programs, go to www.nuds.com. Again, congratulations to Layton Lancers. For Vince Francis, I'm Dusty Lister. Thanks for joining us and following High School Rewind's coverage of the 2015 5A Boys State Championship Basketball Tournament only on Xfinity On Demand.